Today we have some big news out of Hyundai. We finally have seen pictures of the all-new, hotly anticipated Santa Cruz. This is sort of a pickup truck-like vehicle. They're calling it a sport adventure vehicle rather than directly calling it a pickup truck, however. The interesting thing about the Santa Cruz is its size. On the outside, it's about as big as a Honda Pilot, so it is notably shorter than a Honda Ridgeline. The Ridgeline's about 210 inches long. This is going to be about 195 inches long. According to Hyundai, that gives this vehicle the practicality of a compact crossover with the extra utility of a bed in the back and then an underfloor trunk like we find in the Ridgeline. Normally at this point in the video I would say I don't know when I'm going to be able to get my hands on a Santa Cruz, but that would be a lie today because I know that tomorrow I'm actually going to be able to film it in person. So if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button down there, stay tuned, and that video should be up about maybe 24 hours after you're watching this video, perhaps even less if I can really get that out soon. In the meantime, let's roll through the pictures and then roll through the numbers that Hyundai has released for the vehicle. This has 20-inch wheels, so when you take a look at these pictures, keep that in mind. This is a little bit larger than a lot of people were initially expecting. Some folks were initially expecting that it would basically be a Hyundai Tucson with the rear end whacked off. And although there are obviously going to be some corollaries with this and the Tucson, it doesn't appear to be exactly a Tucson pickup truck. In fact, in terms of overall vehicle length, this is longer than a Hyundai Santa Fe. It's closer to the average mid-size 3-row crossover than the average compact 2-row crossover. So definitely bigger than a RAV4 or CR-V. Again, this is more similarly sized to something like a Pilot or perhaps a Highlander at the moment. And that applies not just to the vehicle's length, but also the width. This is going to be 75 inches wide, so wider than a Frontier and wider than a Tacoma, but not quite as wide as the Ridgeline. One thing you'll definitely notice is that the roofline is lower than the average mid-sized truck in America right now, and that's why I get a lot of Subaru Brat vibes out of this vehicle. And I actually think that's a really good thing, because I've long wondered what would happen if a vehicle like this was brought back to the American market. There used to be some small pickup trucks and some sort of sedan pickup truck hybrids out there. Everybody probably remembers the El Camino. And that format of vehicle lived on in Australia for quite a long time. But for some reason, we've never had those modern vehicles in the United States until now. Now obviously with smaller exterior dimensions than the competition, this is going to be about 10 inches shorter than the shortest Nissan Frontier currently on sale. It's going to have a smaller bed. The bed's going to be, according to these specifications, 52.1 inches long, and they're actually going to be sort of an upper and lower bed area. The upper one is going to be 48.4 inches long. But with unibody construction, a suspension that is very similar to the rest of the crossover lineup at Hyundai, 18 and 20-inch wheels, this is definitely more of an on-road focused vehicle, and honestly, that is the kind of vehicle that most pickup truck shoppers should really be looking at, because the vast majority of truck shoppers don't really tow much over 5,000 pounds, and they, generally speaking, don't really go off-road either. Speaking of towing ability, it will top out at 5,000 pounds. There are going to be two different engines available. There's a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine that is basically borrowed out of the Hyundai Santa Fe, and then we're going to have an optional 2.5-liter turbocharged engine, which was something that I wasn't expecting. That 2.5-liter turbo is basically the N-line engine out of the Sonata. It produces 275 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. Those are their current estimates. They may change by the time this goes on sale. And it's going to be mated to an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission, which is also a bit of a surprise. Even more of a surprise, we're going to get paddle shifters on the back of the steering wheel, which I think is a really great touch for a vehicle like this. Now, if you aren't interested in turbo power and you're simply looking for one of the most efficient vehicles in this segment, that's probably going to be the base engine. It's going to give you 190 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque. That engine compares incredibly favorably with the base engines that we find in General Motors midsize trucks and the Toyota Tacoma, and keep in mind, this is probably going to be much lighter than those options. Now let's roll through the interior video. Obviously, the first thing you're going to notice is that this looks an awful lot like the brand new Hyundai Tucson. We get the available 10-inch instrument cluster and 10-inch infotainment system in the dashboard, and then a smaller LCD for the climate control system. A lot of the components here are borrowed out of the rest of the Hyundai family, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But if you're looking for something with a more truck-like vibe on the inside, that might not be the Santa Cruz. The steering wheel looks definitely very much like the one that we find in the current Hyundai Sonata. The buttons, everything going on in here, the switchgear, the shifter, everything is very crossover-like. Hyundai has provided some footage of the rear passenger area. It looks like the rear seating configuration is going to be very similar to the average compact crossover. So expect rear legroom to be pretty similar to the CR-V, RAV4, and of course the new Tucson. The seats themselves definitely look like small pickup truck seats, because if you lift up the bottom cushion, there's some additional storage space under there, just like we find in other mid-sized trucks. And by all these photos, it looks like the floor is going to be pretty flat under there. even though this is a unibody vehicle with the drivetrain that connects to the rear axle. As we see in mid-size trucks, the rear seat bottom cushions lift up, allowing you to access some under-seat storage. Now, because this is an all-wheel drive vehicle and there is a drive shaft that runs to the rear, and of course this is a unibody vehicle, we don't have a flat floor in the back. Hyundai's provided some interesting video footage of the cargo area. The first thing you're going to notice is that we have a roller-style cargo cover that looks like a really handy feature because it takes up less room than some of the other tonneau covers that we find in pickup trucks. It may sacrifice just a tiny bit of practicality because obviously you couldn't drop an enormous box the entire size of that cargo area in there, but it looks much more practical than some of the other things that we've seen. It appears to be sort of a Venetian blind looking thing, I guess you might say, or one of those roller top desk covers. It's rigid and it is lockable, which is a nice feature. It also looks to be watertight, which is really an interesting twist, so you can keep things both locked away and dry under that cargo cover. Then we have some additional underfloor storage like we find in the Honda Ridgeline with a separate trunk that's under the floor. The one thing that did surprise me is that we have a pretty standard tailgate here, so Hyundai has not tried to make a tailgate that also flips open or moves to the side or does any sort of tailgate origami. At the moment, Hyundai has yet to release pricing information, but they do say that it's going to be on sale this summer, so be sure and stay tuned because you will find these on dealer lots and on roads near you very, very soon. Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so because you will see a video probably tomorrow detailing some of the extra things that I've been able to find out when I'm able to actually see this in person and, of course, see video footage of it in person. I'll see all of you later.